Now we're going to go into some architectural pattern discussions. Initially, the audience for this presentation was different, but since when I found out that it will be within our team and we're going to have top-notch developers in this presentation, so I added more architectural related content to it, right? So first thing is, when you talk about serverless, within serverless, you could build a web application, you could build a backend job that process application, you could build a streaming application, you could build a serverless file processing application, right? So that's how I tried to structure this. So first, let's talk about web applications. Now, once again, there are other ways to build a web application, to build a serverless web application, but here I'm just talking about like a typical architecture, which we would use when building web applications, the serverless web application on AWS. We're going to have the static part of the application on S3. Static part includes if you have like a JavaScript-based web application, if you're using React or Angular or all these frameworks, the JavaScript code for the application would live in S3. That's the static part. Similarly, all the assets, media, all of these would live in S3. Okay. You would also it's not depicted in this diagram, but you would also have a CloudFront distribution in front of S3 for efficient distribution of the static assets and caching. The dynamic part of the application, the business logic, would live in Lambda, which is AWS Serverless Compute Service, as you all know. And then you're going to have a REST API deployed on on API gateway. And the API gateway, REST API, is going to integrate with Lambda. And then for database, typical database technology to use for serverless is DynamoDB. You could use any NoSQL or any SQL-based database, but you have to make sure that the SQL-based database that you use supports serverless behavior. If you just use an RDS MySQL, it won't support serverless behavior or serverless access pattern. So you would need to use an RDS proxy. So not going into too many details there, but you have to make sure that your database technology supports serverless patterns. If you want to use SQL based, you could use Aurora Serverless. That goes well with the serverless architecture.